Okay guys, we are spending our last week of school on factoring trinomials. So before we get started, let's go over some vocab so that we all understand what we're talking about. So this week you're going to be presented with a trinomial and you're going to be asked to factor that trinomial. So it's important that you understand what a trinomial is. So a trinomial has three terms. That's where it gets its name from. It's a polynomial with three terms. And you're going to be asked to take that trinomial and factor it into a product of two binomials. Okay, so product of two binomials. Okay, and that's exactly what I just underlined here in blue. And we know that product means multiplication. And we know that binomials from last week have two terms. Okay, so I'm going to give you the trinomial. You are going to work backwards and give me the product of two binomials. So what two binomials did you have to multiply together to get the trinomial that you're given? Okay, and we're going to take a minute and we're going to tie this all back to the number puzzles that I gave you as an opener. Okay, so the number puzzle, the pattern was that the two sides multiply to give you the top number and they add to give you the bottom number. Okay, so if we're looking at 15 and 8, we're looking for two numbers that multiply to 15 and also add to 8. So I'm going through my head and I'm thinking, okay, well 1 times 15 is 15. 2 doesn't go into 15. 3 times 5 is 15. And those are my only two pairs of numbers that multiply to give me 15. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, which set of numbers is going to also add to give me 8? And it's the 3 and the 5. So those would be the sides of my number puzzle. Okay, I'm not going to write the factors out for every problem, but if you are struggling to find numbers that multiply to a certain number, you can always Google factor chart. Okay, and that'll give you a list of the factors of the different numbers that you might be looking at. Okay, so how does this all relate to what we're going to do today? You can fill in the number puzzles, but what does that really mean when you're talking about factoring a trinomial? So if we look at these sides, those two numbers are factors of 15. So those are actually our binomial factors of a trinomial. And remember last week we used the distributive property to make trinomials from two binomials. And we did that by taking everything that was in the first binomial and we multiplied it by everything that was in the second binomial. Okay, and then we used the distributive property. And after we used the distributive property, we combined like terms, which happened to be in the middle. And if I did that with this problem, I would end up with x squared plus 8x plus 15. Now I'm wondering if you see these lovely numbers, 8 and 15, anywhere else. Well, you got it. They are the top and bottom of our number puzzle. Okay, and that is how our number puzzle actually relates to factoring. So we're going to start at the bottom. We're going to be given this trinomial and we're going to have to work backwards to find the two binomial factors. Okay, so you'll hear me call this the X method. And the whole reason it's called the X method is because of this lovely little X that we have right here. Because this is a nice little tool to help us locate the numbers that we need in order to factor. Okay. All right, so let's continue on and let's look at an example here. So I've given you this little number puzzle, blank number puzzle here. I will not give that to you on every problem, but for now, I'm giving it to you. And the first thing that I always like to do, again, I like to put my operators, so I know that I need to multiply to the top number and add to the bottom number. Okay. And if we look back to the example that we just looked at, the number puzzle we just looked at, we notice that that 15, the last number in our trinomial, happened to be the top of the box. So in this case, I'm going to put 28, my last number, in the top of the box. And if we look at the last example, 8, my middle number, was the bottom of the box. So in this case, 11 is going to be the bottom of the box. Okay, and then we're just looking for those two numbers that multiply to 28 and also add to 11. So I'm just going to go through them in my head. 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 7 and 4. And 7 and 4 happen to also add to 11. So those are my two factors, x plus 7 and x plus 4. And if you were to do this work and distribute and multiply it out, you would get that trinomial. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. Okay, multiply and add. I always write my operators. And I want to multiply to the last number, which in this case is 32. And I want to add to the middle number, which is 12. I'm going through my factors of 32. I have 2 and 16. I have 8 and 4. And I'm going to stop at 8 and 4 because 8 and 4 also add to 12. Okay, and again, you can always Google a factor chart, or you could be using your calculator to find numbers that multiply to 32. Okay. And again, if I were to distribute this out, I would end up with that trinomial. Okay, couple more examples. You will have examples on homework where I don't give you the x, so you need to be thinking every time you see a trinomial, you need to be drawing the x. You don't necessarily have to draw the box. I don't, I just draw the x. Okay, so I need to multiply to the last number, in this case the red number 8, and I need to add to the middle number, which in this case is 6. So what are two numbers that multiply to 8 that also add to 6? Well, I have 1 and 8, that doesn't add to 6. I have 2 times 4, which also happens to add to 6. Okay. So I'm going to write that out. You are not done when you fill out the x. You have to write your factors as two binomials. So if you're working on your homework assignment, this is worth 1 point. This is worth another point. So you have to do both pieces to get full credit. Okay, let's take a look here. Next one. Multiply at the top, add at the bottom. I need to multiply to the last number, which is 24, and I need to add to the middle number, which in this case happens to be a negative 11. Okay, so if I need two numbers to multiply and give me a positive, that means they have to have the same sign. Either both numbers are positive or both numbers are negative. Okay, you can't have a mixture. They both have to have the same sign in order to multiply to positive 24. But if I look at negative 11, that means my numbers have to add to a negative number. Well, the only way that that can happen is if both of these values are negative. Okay, so we know both of our factors are going to be negative, and you just have to find the two numbers. So I'm going through 24, and I'm thinking, okay, 1 and 24, that won't give me 11. 2 and 12, that won't give me 11. 8 and 3, well, that does give me 11. but they have to be negative in order to give me a negative 11. So in this case, my factors are x minus 3 and x minus 8. Okay, one more. Again, same thing. I always set up my x first with my operators. And I know that I need to multiply to the n number, which this time is a negative 36. And I need to add to a positive 5. Okay, so let's think about what it means to have a negative product. If I have a negative product, that means I have taken a negative number times a positive number. That's the only way that you can get a negative product. So I know that one number has to be positive and one number has to be negative. I'm actually not going to write that positive there, but I know that one number has to be negative. And I just have to figure out which one. Okay, so I'm going through my factors of 36, 1 and 36. That's not going to give me a difference of 5. 2 and 18, that's not going to give me a difference of 5. 3 and 12, no. 4 and 9, will 4 and 9 give me a difference of 5? Yeah, they will. Which one has to be negative? Well, since it's a positive 5, it has to be a positive 9 and a negative 4. So my factors would be x plus 9 and x minus 4. Okay, last one. Okay, all right. So I know I need to multiply to a negative 20 and I need to add to a negative 8. Knowing that my product is a negative number, that means that one of my numbers is going to be positive, one of my factors is positive, and one of my factors is negative. Okay, so you should be thinking about a difference. So what two numbers multiply to 20 that also give me a difference of 8? So I have 1 and 20. No. 2 and 10. Do 2 and 10 give me a difference of 8? Yes, they do. So now it becomes which one is positive, which one is negative. So if I need to add to a negative 8, that means my 10 has to be negative. And don't forget to write your factors, x minus 10, x plus 2.